Hey designers, this is Karthik from Design School for WordPress Beginners, the place where I teach you how to design, build and customize your websites. If you're new here, consider subscribing. Let's get into the video. This video is a part of playlist called Elementor Basics, in which we discuss about every widget, every feature and every setting that is available under Elementor. And in today's video, we'll discuss about Elementor's button widget. We'll start with the basics of Elementor button, and then I'll show you how to create animations and transitions such as this one, all this just by using CSS and Elementor button widget. So the Elementor button widget has content tab, style tab and advanced tab. So to start with, under type you have default, info, success, warning or danger, that will basically change the background color of the button when you choose the type of the button. So this is a normal CSS convention and it's really neat that Elementor just added. And under text you can type whatever text you want. So you can say click me or I'm a button, anything. So you can type anything. You can also link it to any dynamic field. So you can link it to author name. In this case it's me. So if you have Elementor Pro, you will have this dynamic option and you can link it to any dynamic field. Same is the case with the link. So you can link it to a URL. So you can type your URL here, or you can also type the name of the page or post and it will give you suggestions. You can click on that and it will autofill the URL for that particular page, just like that. You can also link button to dynamic options. You can also make the button open pop-ups or even close pop-ups. So I can choose pop-up here and I can choose the action. I can also choose to toggle between the pop-up. So you can also select the pop-up that you want to add. So if you have the Pro version, again you will have these dynamic options and few neat little alignment options. You can also resize the button based on your requirement. So you can make it large, small. You can also pick an icon for your button and maybe the position of the button. You can put it wherever you want. You can adjust the spacing between the icon and the button, and you can also give this button an ID. So this is helpful when you're adding JavaScript or when you're styling this button in a unique way. Anyway, I'll show you how to do this with custom CSS. So we'll get into that in a bit. So that's the content tab of the button in a nutshell. These options are pretty self-explanatory, and let's talk about advanced options. Under style tab you have typography options. So you can change the font family. Maybe you can choose a custom font if you want. You can also change the font size based on the device type. You can also choose the font weight, make it a bit lighter if your font actually supports that. You can also transform. You can also style it, maybe make it italic or oblique. Most of it is the same. You can also add decoration to your text. So you can also add a text color. So you can change the text color from here. You can pick background color that will actually change the background color of your button, like that. So there's also on hover options. So you can also change on hover animations, but anyway, the hover animations that are supplied with Elementor are pretty basic, but with custom CSS you can do some pretty advanced and amazing stuff like this one or this one. I'll show you that in a bit. So you can also pick an on hover animation. You can make it pop or pick from any of the animations built in. You can also pick a border radius, padding. So padding will basically add the space within the button. So if you add maybe around 10 pixels, or let's add a 30 pixel padding, so it will just make the button a bit bigger from the inside, not from the outside. So that's how it works. You can also add a box shadow to your button to make it stand out. So that's pretty much it. So there's nothing much to do in the style option as well, but wait, there's a lot more. Now I'll show you how to style Elementor buttons using just the CSS, I'll actually show you how to port the code that is available on the internet. So you can take any button effect from the internet and I'll show you how to port it to Elementor button. In order to do that, you need to understand what Elementor button is made up of. So let's actually go ahead and inspect the button using the Chrome inspector. If you have CSS Hero, you can directly get the class name just by clicking on it, but I'll show you how to do that with Chrome inspector. Let's right click on any Elementor button. I'll click on inspect, and from here you can see that there are two main classes. The first one is Elementor button. As you can see here, it is a link. So basically this is the main class that we'll be using most of the time. So if there are any CSS animations or on hover effects, we'll actually be targeting this Elementor-button class. And if there are any CSS effects or transitions targeting the text within the button, well, this is the class that we need to target. I'll show you that practically so you don't have to worry about it. Let's get into it. So you can Google for CSS button effects or CSS on hover button effects and you'll get a lot of links. I just found this one from freefrontend.com and I've played with a lot of these codes and they work perfectly fine with Elementor. I'll show you how to port this code into Elementor's button widget. So from this article, I found the first effect as this one. So how do you achieve that and how do you analyze this and how do you port the code from this to Elementor button? So you need to understand HTML first. Don't worry, I'll not teach you complex HTML, it's simple. So you just click on this drop down and you just click on view compiled HTML. So it will show you purely HTML, and always pick code that has the minimal amount of HTML. Why is that so? Because Elementor button class is simple. The main class inside Elementor button is .elementor-button. So anything with a simple HTML such as this one will do. And it's also better to avoid JavaScript unless and until you really know how to deal with it. But we're actually targeting for pure CSS button effects. So just click on this and again click on view compiled CSS. So it will show you pure CSS. So now you need to understand what this class is doing and you need to understand which code to pick so that this hover effect will be applied to your button. And of course, as this is a demo CodePen, they'll have styles for the entire article, not just the button. So you need to carefully understand what is what. So HTML with an HTML tag of A, which stands for link, is the equivalent of Elementor button. So whichever code has something like this one, so this actually stands for a hyperlink or a link. So this is your Elementor button. So whichever class is there within this link is the class or is the one that you need to target in order to get the styles of the same button. So we found out that the link has a class of button. So whichever CSS is provided for this class, we need to port that CSS to our Elementor button. So we need to transform this into this. So let's go ahead and do it. As I told you, this A HTML tag, which is the hyperlink tag, you need to look in the CSS for styles provided for this A hyperlink in general or the class itself. So let's go ahead and scan the CSS and let's actually copy and paste the same CSS so that we'll get the same effect. So here's a tag called body, so it actually applies some styling to the body. We don't need this, you can carefully avoid that. And there's something called container, we're not even bothered about it. We just want the code for the button. And then there's code for A, which is the Elementor equivalent of button. So let's copy this code. It's better to have a code editor. I have Atom installed on my laptop, on my MacBook. So if you have Windows, maybe you can go with Notepad++. I'll show you why in a bit, but it's always good to paste the code into code editor so that it will be easy to search and replace few words with the class names of Elementor button. You'll understand what I'm talking about in a bit. So First I got the code for the Elementor equivalent of the button, so it's the link. So I copied the CSS of this. I'm happy. Now let's go ahead and get the CSS of the next one. So here I have something called button. So whichever has something called btn, that's the CSS that I need to copy and paste so that the same effects will be applied to my Elementor button. It's in fact till the end of this article there's btn everywhere, so you just simply copy everything that has .btn in it. So it's basically the Elementor equivalent of your button. Again, I'm copying and pasting this into my text editor. So in my Atom text editor, I'll select .btn, I'll hit Command F, which is find and replace. So I just need to replace the class name with selector space .elementor hyphen button. So by doing so, we'll apply the same style. We're actually replacing the general code to our Elementor specific code. So we're basically replacing class name with this selector space .elementor hyphen button. So I'll just click on replace all. So it will replace all the instances of that particular text with the text or the class that I want. Okay, let's copy and paste all this into our custom CSS and see what it's doing to our Elementor button. So here's our normal button. I'll just click on this. I'll go to advanced, custom CSS. I'll paste it, and just like that, it changed the style and it works perfectly fine. Easy, right? And we just left few more text, and there's something called a. You can also replace this with selector space Elementor button. I'll remove this. I'll just copy the class name. You can see from the CSS that it's doing some basic text editing stuff, so it doesn't really matter. I'll copy the whole CSS once again, or the whole stuff once again. On the custom CSS, I'll just paste it, and just like that, I turned my normal button. So from this, I just made to look like this. It's that easy. So we just ported the first code into this. I'll leave a link to the pens or the codes that we have achieved in this video. So here's another button style. So this is the kind of animation that will actually produce. Again, I'll just click on this, view compiled HTML, and I'll do the same with this, view compiled CSS. There's a simple link. So this is our Elementor equivalent. So I just need to look in the CSS for the styles applied to the link or this class in general. So I can see from here that there's only cool beans class being targeted. So I'll copy everything that has cool beans. I'll copy this, and body, we don't have to style the body really because we're just worried about the button. So I'll just again pick this Elementor button, go to custom CSS. Oh yeah, wait, we need to paste the whole code into our text editor. We'll now replace this again with, you guessed it right, selector space Elementor button, so that when we paste it into the custom CSS, it will apply all this code into our Elementor button. I'll just hit replace all. Now we have our Elementor specific code. Control A, Control C. I'll paste the whole code again, and yeah, there we are. You might need to adjust few other properties, but you basically get the same on our animation, right? So you can adjust the font size, maybe you can adjust the padding and all that stuff. So based on your requirement, just style it and it will have, but the on hover animation remains. So that's how you port the second pen. Now let's port this code. So again, I'll just click on this, and this is pure HTML, and if this is not pure HTML, you just need to click on view compiled HTML. So it will show you pure HTML so that you'll understand what exactly is going on. As I can see from here, that we don't have a link, but we do have a button. So no matter if you have a link or a button, it's an equivalent to an Elementor button. And there's something called button text, and that's equivalent to Elementor button text. So button is equivalent to Elementor button class, and button text or BTN text is equivalent to Elementor button text. So that's how you port it. So here it's applying this neat little animation. So let's port the first code. So we need to locate everything or anything with a button style or something with a button class, and then something that has a BTN text class. So let's scan the CSS for it. Again, I'll just need to click on this, and I just need to click on this, and I need to click on view compiled CSS. I'm already viewing the compiled CSS, so it will show me pure CSS that I can simply copy and paste into my Elementor. So this is body and HTML. We're not worried about body and HTML. We're also not worried about container because that's all handled by Elementor. And yeah, .btn. So .btn is the first one. So this button is this class. So anything and everything with .btn, we just need to copy it. So again, we have something called .btn .rounded, which is the second button. We don't need that for now. Actually, the second button has two classes. It has BTN and it has rounded as well. But let's first achieve the first button effect. So we just need to copy everything till here. So starting from .btn, we just need to copy till here, till the end. I'll copy, go to my text editor, Control A, Control V. So again, you know the drill. Just replace .btn with, you guessed it, this phrase. So it's like the magical phrase that will apply all the CSS to our Elementor buttons. Let's click on select all, and there's a complication here. So here we got something called selector Elementor button selector. Again, this is not a valid syntax. So let's go a step back. Let's first replace the text or the BTN text with Elementor button text, and then replace button with Elementor button. So BTN text, we can simply replace it with Elementor button text because that's the class we found out earlier. So I'll just hit replace all. So now that issue is solved. There's an extra dot, I'll remove that. So now we can safely replace .btn with selector space .elementor button. So there are 4 instances of it. I'll replace all of them, and now I have pure code that I can port to my Elementor area. So I'll just click on this, go to advanced, the custom CSS, and you see that, and when I hover over it, we got that effect. Neat. Now let's port the second one. So the second one is a bit tricky. So the first one has just the class of BTN, whereas the second one has two classes. So whenever there's space between class, it actually has multiple classes. There can only be one CSS ID, but there can be multiple CSS classes. So for the second button effect, which is this one, we need to copy the styles of BTN class, the rounded one, and then the text green class as well. So you'll first copy the BTN one. So again, this also has BTN before. Again, we don't need to copy this because it has BTN text, and this second button has a text of text green, so you don't need this. So you need to copy everything till here. Again, go to our text editor, paste the whole code. Let's eliminate the unnecessary code, as this is targeting the text within the first button. We don't need this. So we got all the code for the button, which is .btn, and then we also got the code for btn rounded, which is the class of the second one. So we just need to replace .btn.rounded with our magical phrase. You know it, it's selector.elementor button. So let's replace all and let's see how that looks like. So I think that looks better. And now we have something called text green. So we can actually replace text green with .elementor button text. So within selector, we're targeting Elementor button text with this CSS, and we need to replace btn with our magical phrase. I think this will work. Let's see. If it doesn't, again we can see if there's any problem within our CSS. So I'll just click on that, go to advanced, and a custom CSS. Let me paste the code, and it just works. Let's actually change the background color so that we'll see it. So that's it. So we successfully ported the second button code as well. And I just love the way that it plays well with the CSS and also with the options that you set under style tab. So you don't have to clear out all the options. All these, our animations or effects, will carefully work in conjunction with the style that you have set under the style tab of the button widget. And this custom CSS won't even affect your content tab. So whatever you have set under content will remain intact unless and until your CSS or the JavaScript is changing it. In our cases, you can link it to a dynamic field. You can maybe open a pop-up, you can close a pop-up and do all that stuff, and also the on hover animation. So that's really neat. So you can do this, and then use it as a normal regular button. That's the reason why I've shown you how to port the code instead of simply copying and pasting the HTML, because if you simply copy and paste the HTML, well, you'll lose all the options supplied with Elementor, and doing that yourself is a big mess. Okay, let's wrap it up with two more button styles. So I'll show you how to achieve this and my personal favorite, this one, which is actually animating the button. So let's go ahead and check this one out. Again, just click on HTML, and if there's something called pure HTML or uncompiled HTML, view that, and the same applies to this. So you'll click on view compiled CSS, it will give you pure CSS that you can copy and paste. So there are three buttons here. So there are three button classes. As I've told you, button element is equivalent of Elementor button, and the class is button, and it has, the first one has another class of type 1, the second one has another class of type 2. So all these share the common class of button, and then each one have their own classes such as type 1, type 2 and type 3. So we need to target all that. Again, we don't need body CSS, we don't need copyright, we don't need any of it. We need button. Let's achieve the third effect. You can also achieve the rest two effects by doing the same. So dot button is common for all the widgets or for all the buttons. So copy it. Let's paste it into a text editor. And I want to achieve the effect 3, and effect 3 has a class of type 3. So I don't need to bother about type 1. I don't need to bother about type 2. And simply go to type 3, and here it starts with type 3. So I can simply go down until the end of it. You can simply copy and paste the remaining code into my text editor first, so that it'll easy for me to edit it. Again, I'll replace the whole phrase with our magical phrase, which is Elementor button. And you also need to check if there's any text, where anyway we're not changing text because the text remains unaffected here. So we're actually dealing with CSS of the button itself. So I replaced that with selector space Elementor button. And we also need to replace this with our magical phrase, which is selector Elementor button. And also this, which is our, you guessed it. So if it doesn't work, you can do some basic troubleshooting and you'll get to know where it went wrong. So this is a normal button and this is the effect that we're trying to achieve. So I'll just click on this, go to advanced. From the text editor that I've edited, I just copy it and I got the CSS and I achieved the effect just by doing or following the steps that I've taught you. So that's great. Now let's wrap it up with the last one, which is this. I'll reset the style of this. So it's a normal Elementor button. So let's go ahead and change it to this one. So the last example has 4 different links. As you can see from here, link, aggressive radius and larger button. They're actually 3 in number. So it is a basic link. As we all know that keyframes stand for animation checkpoints. So you need to copy everything with keyframes. Let's go to a text editor. I'll remove this. I'll paste the first snippet of code. We don't need the style for body. And then we're targeting any of this. We'll actually target link, something that says link. So we'll find everything with a class of btn stripe. So that's actually common for everything. So btn, it has btn stripe, btn stripe after. So till here I need to copy everything. So I'll just click on this. Oh, sorry. I just need to go to my code editor and I need to replace .btn stripe with our magical phrase, which is selector Elementor text. And let's see what else is left. I think this can be deleted safely. I think that's pretty much it. Let's try to copy and paste it and see if it works. Just go here, go to advanced, the custom CSS. I'll paste that. It's working perfectly fine. And if you're getting a 403 error when you're updating CSS, just disable your word fence temporarily. Just update or publish the code and you can reactivate your word fence after doing so. It's basically your word fence that will stop some part of code from being executed. And finally, I want to show you how to add a gradient button. I've already taught this in gradients tutorial, so I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. But it's simple. You just type selector and Elementor button, which is our magical phrase, and the code for gradient is background image and linear gradient. And here you can specify direction to right and specify your colors. So just like that, you can specify as many colors as you want. You can also specify an angle at which the gradient should be applied, and you can specify as many colors as you want. So that's the whole thing about Elementor button in a nutshell, and feel free to check out Elementor Basics playlist to better understand each and every feature in Elementor. I'll talk to you in the next video. Peace. And that's it for now, and hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And if you need anything else, don't hesitate to ask. I'm ready to help you. Catch you in the next video. Peace.